Hi everybody, other stargates are here. Wanted to go someplace quiet without interruption. I woke up in this state. Today, astrologically, is the new moon, or the full moon Scorpio eclipse, the sun in Taurus. And astrologically, that means that we're coming to a new phase, right? Scorpio moon, so digging up old things from the past and our emotional selves and confronting them, and then washing that away, and kind of not washing it away, but like letting it go, clean slate. When the light comes back, now we're reflecting our new version of self, right? And so astrologically, that's what everyone is geared toward, and they're all talking about the coronation and all this stuff. Astronomically speaking, the sun is in Aries, the moon is in Virgo. We're having a ETA Aquarid, Eta Aquarid meteor shower coming through, and there is still an eclipse, right? Full moon in Virgo eclipse would be the true term of it. And then there's also Beltane, right? This pagan holiday that's based on these cross-quarter days, and it is traditionally observed on May 1st, because according to the circles, May 1st is where it sits. But if you want to listen to the people who celebrate, some people who celebrate it say that historically it's actually at 15 degrees Taurus, and 15 degrees Leo for Lughnasadh in August. And so that argument is also kind of wrong, since the sun is actually in Aries and the moon is actually in Virgo, and yet all of those things are correct at the same time, according to which history you're looking through, which map you're reading, right? It doesn't change the brass tacks of where we're actually all standing right at this moment in our lives and in ourselves. And if, as a group and as a collective, we're all shifting in this way according to whichever way you want to look at it, right? So that's true. This is currently truly happening right now. Look at the world. There's all kinds of stuff happening. Here, let me straighten myself out. I know, I woke up and I was like, this must be done. And I must say some things, because this is a time of release. And I've been making a shift myself. For anybody who's been following me, anybody who's supported me, anybody who's loved me, I can't thank you enough. I can't express to you the gratitude that I have for your support, your encouragement, your kindness. The past few years have been really, I'd say rough on everybody, right? We've all been going through tons of stuff together. And in our personal lives, we've all been going through tons of stuff individually, and I am no exception. And sometimes, not sometimes, it's like when we build a structure in our lives, we tend to multiply that, right? Fractal. And fractal's interesting. And then we create this ripple effect in our lives where everything is kind of the reflection of this thing, right? What we think that it should look like. And then we make it again, and we make it again, and we make it again. And so that's what I had done. I had a lot of things growing up that led me to create some pretty crazy things in my personal life, and I want to say that gave me vision, but it informed me about human nature, about my own nature, about stuff that I needed to fix within myself. And I worked really hard, and I'm not the same person that I was. And hopefully, through the realization process, we all come to that point. And we're going to talk about the shifts, because there are some things that I want to talk to you guys about that are really personal to me. And I've been kind of letting some of it out here and there, but I really talk about it fully, what my experience was, what my experience has been, and hopefully, what my experience won't be in the future. But unfortunately, people are people, and I'm me, and I can be, that old adage, like if you want people to hate you, tell them the truth. Yeah, it's really hard to be that person who is, astrologically, it is the sign of Scorpio. Astronomically, it's the sign of Virgo. Beltane doesn't really exist on this day, but it does. I mean, where do I sit, right? They're like, what side are you on? And it's like, there is no side to a circle. All of these points are valid from the point of view in which they're standing. And seeing things in this manner has allowed me to see a lot more. And it's allowed me to develop a few things. And recently I was shown another thing, and someone came at me. And that person came at me and they were like, well, that looks familiar. And I was like, oh, did you read my book? And they were like, no, it looks like Fractal Earth's work. So I went to Fractal Earth's work and I was like, wow, that work looks a lot like my work, except that it's done in a different style, since he's been accompanied by, and I'm not sure exactly who Fractal Earth is. I'll just be straight up with you. I don't know who a lot of these people are. I am Heather Stargazer. My work has my name all over it and my face. And I'm pretty open with things about who I am and what I'm doing and how my work works, because I want to help people. But when other people are coming to me, showing me someone else's work like I copied off of them, when it's clearly, obviously, and blatantly patterned off of my hard work and my research, I'm going to look into it. And when I investigate it and I see that nothing of that sort, even remotely close, even though fractal work had a lot of really good work up until that point where it changed, and when it changed and it evolved was well after my work was published, with an ISBN number on Amazon, with a website that's protected by copyright. However I feel about that, I'm a human living in this world. Okay? So I was like, oh, well, maybe he must have read my book, And then I get like shut down and I lose subscribers, which means those people are dropping off because I confronted them. And that's not the first time that this happened. I mean, I'm not like a shit talker where I come out on here and I say things. I did one against Fractal Woman, and it wasn't even against what she was saying, her as a person, it was against what she was saying, because there was inconsistencies, there was things that were inaccurate. And again, they come after me. She was the one talking shit about the Radian. So I defended my work. I created a video and explained why my work was valid. And why are you shit talking me? Why are you coming after my work? Why are you trying to invalidate somebody else's shit that's actually getting results? Why are people consistently taking my work and then not giving me any credit? Not only not giving me credit, but talking shit about me behind my back so that you all will stop listening to me. This has been a consistent pattern with this particular group of people. But not just with that particular group of people, with a whole bunch of people in the whole wide world. And that's why during the Scorpio full moon, we're confronting these things. Okay? We're looking at these things. And I'm looking at this thing in myself and I'm like, how many years are you going to keep working and keep pushing and keep striving for something for people who hate you? These people do not like me. Ben Davidson hates me. Hates me. I was one of his biggest supporters. All right, because I supported the work, but when it started to get conspiratorial, when it started to get weird, and I really started looking at it, I was like, something's wrong here. But it wasn't just that. What led me to think that was when I went to his conference in 2019, and I was put between like him and a friend like this. I went with Eugene Bagashoff. I didn't go with him, but I met him there because we were working on some projects together and I thought we were friends. And then I went to get a picture taken behind the big thing with everybody, like everybody does, with him and Ben Davidson, and they scooted next to each other and kind of pushed me aside, and I was so blind. And that picture isn't even up on the website. That picture doesn't even exist. The only picture of me on their website at that show or at that conference is the big giant one in front of the whole group of people, in front of their big bus. And people were coming up to me and saying, hey, Heather, how are you doing? Like people that I had met on their website, like on their chat and talked to about things. And I thought I had some friends there. And one of them actually got better from visiting Eileen McCusick and working with her work on my recommendation. And his wife knows my mom. So these aren't people, you know, these like it was like this valid community, like I'm participating in it, I'm part of it. And then, you know, Anthony Perrott was there and showing, you know, like all of this work, and I had my work with me and I wasn't going to pass up this opportunity. So I went up to Anthony Perrott with my notebook with the OM and all my weird little drawings, and I was like, hey, look at this, you know. And Robert Hawthorne took a picture, and I have that picture. And Anthony Perrott went through my notebook and he looked through it and he was like, oh my God. And we talked about a few things, and he looked me dead in the eye and he told me, oh my God, you're going to figure this out before I do. And you know what happened after that? Yep, enemy number one. Get that bitch out of here. Do whatever you can. Fuck her. Get her out of here. We don't want anything to do with her, right? But these people I thought were my friends. But this started happening, and then I opened my eyes because I wasn't so blind, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's sus, but this other group's okay. So I went over to go work with this other group, and I got kind of pulled in, right? And I'd already been pulled in because I was writing a book about the electric universe. I was on the Electric View. And those people are the people, it was like Eugene Bagashoff all of a sudden shows up. And we're talking about all of these things, and we're doing all of this work. So that's why I wound up meeting these people at that conference. All right. And then all of a sudden, like, people are pushing back at me, and I start getting death threats from random people that follow Ben Davidson. I start getting like all this shit, all this hate mail. They started a hashtag against me, pound not electric weather, pound not heathen stargazers. They started like a whole campaign against me. Steve Whetstone did that pound it's not this, you know. And then they would still come after me and still look at my shit and still make comments, and I was blocking them, right? And then I go to another conference with these people who I think are my friends. And I meet them, and I spend an entire month with one of them, and we go over all this stuff, and I realize, I see what's actually happening, and that this isn't something that I actually want to be affiliated with, because it isn't just about all this work that we're doing. There's like other things going on, and it's about taking other people down sometimes, and it isn't a kind work, and it isn't a nice work, and a lot of the stuff is agenda oriented. And so I was like, you know what, I'm out, I'll see you guys later. And I backed off. And they were not just doing this to me, there was like an infiltration at a certain point, right? Where people came into these groups and they started vivisecting them and taking them apart and going after people, because people were starting to see the holes in the cheese. All right. And they were starting to ask questions. And I naively was asking questions that were pissing people off. But I really I'm sorry, like, what? Well, what about this? And then like, get her, you know. And that happened to me for a very long time. And it's still obviously continuing to happen to me, since my work is still being used without reference by people who are linked to people who undermined me tremendously. And I'm not the only person that they did this to. Another good friend of mine is like on the borderline of suicide constantly because of the shit that they did to him. Just like me, you know? And they do this. And it's like, this is why I kind of want to walk away from a lot of it, because it's so, we're talking about looking at things from all these different angles and trying to put it together, right? But the sun is in Aries. The sun is actually like facing the sign of Aries right now. If you want to know about that, check out my precession of the equinoxes video. If you want to understand the difference between astrology and astronomy, check out my astrology versus astronomy video. If you want to understand why the radians are working and why somebody would bother to duplicate this precious work, read my book, Light Range. Okay? So then I make a shift over where I'm like, I'm just going to do tarot because this is a much more healthy community for me. It brings me light, right? And that, in a way, pushes me further from the work that I have been doing. And the incorporation of the two is strange, right? Because here it is, I'm telling you that we're having a full moon Scorpio and eclipse, and this is the behavioral effect. But then at the same time, I'm telling you they're having a full moon eclipse in Aries. It's Virgo, because the sun is actually in Aries. You know, because it's an eclipse, it's an ellipse. How do we fathom? How do we reconcile all of these things? How can they all be true? How can they all be effective? How can it be Beltane but not Beltane? It's you choose. You choose which map you want to use. You choose which map you want to use. Okay? And then analyze it accordingly. I say, if it's a circle with many points and you want the most well-rounded point of view, you make your way around the circle and check it out from every angle. All right? And that's how I got to many of these places with my work. And I'll continue to get to strange places with my work, but I have definitely put a line in the sand where I've been sharing things. And it's not fair to you, to others, to the world, really. Okay, so then there was this starlight stuff that this guy made, and it would like protect an egg. Like you could coat an egg with it and then shoot it with a blowtorch. You could shoot it with like, I think it was like 2,000 degrees Celsius they hit this egg with, and the inside of it was 35 degrees Celsius. When they cracked it open, it was still a raw egg. And this guy, everybody wanted this thing. And they wanted to use it for weaponry. They wanted to use it for militarization. They wanted to use it for all of this kind of stuff. And he was like, that's not what it's for. By the way, he was a barber who got interested in a hairstylist who got doing hair coloring and then started working with chemicals and then bought an extractor. And the next thing you know, he's made this insane, unique material that is flexible and thin and yet could coat an egg. And it doesn't burn. And the work was so precious to him, and he understood that the ramifications and implications of it in the wrong hands. And so he refused to sell it to anybody. He didn't even ever get a patent on it because he didn't want anybody having that information. That sealed, and then he died in the 80s, and he gave it to his kids, and it's still not been released. We still don't know what Starlight was made of. Because we weren't ready for that. Because everything we do has to be destructive. Is it just like, why? Where's the support? Where's the love? If you're coming at this conversation from a masculine point of view, then you might not be hearing it the same way as someone who's coming from a feminine point of view or a minority. But trust me, we see it, we hear it every day. I watch the stories about the inequality. I watch the stories about the ramifications. I am living proof of that, in that I have been sexually, that's something different, but I've been domestically violenced against, and they don't do, like, they've hardly done anything. For 15 years, my ex-husband was able to get away with whatever the hell he wanted because the judges were, misogynists, people who favored military. They weren't coming at it from my point of view. They were coming at it from his point of view, and they behave the same way, and they exercise and utilize the same tools to subdue, submit, and keep other people down. So they're not going to fault him for it. But then when it finally came down to it and it got switched to a person who was coming at it from more my point of view, a feminine point of view, a minority point of view, someone who had worked has a history in domestic violence and legal aid, poverty and domestic violence from a minority feminine standpoint. And that is where the injustice you're able to see it from that point of view, because you see the ramifications of it, and these people are valued, underrepresented, and constantly being treated unfairly and unjust. And I understand that experience. I have experienced that experience. And right now there is a shift and a time change, and we're moving forward, and we're not going to just let people get away with things without saying their names anymore. We're not just going to stand by and let it happen. Take all of our work, beat us down, launch campaigns against us, send death threats, get into my computers. They could see everything. I mean, you want to talk about creepy, scary? You want to talk about like how many of these minions are driving past my house for a couple years? And then everybody's like, God, that lady's such a bitch. And I'm like, yeah, I got a huge wall up right now. I don't know you. Who are you? Are you one of these people? Yeah, eventually that's what happened. And I probably did get a reputation for being kind of strange. But if you've ever been in this situation where you're being stalked and you've got like your guard up, or you've got people coming after you or stealing your shit before, I mean, like, I got to the point where I was having to write it in pencil in a notebook away from my computer, because every single time I put anything into my computer, someone else had it before I could even publish it, before I could even put it up. And then the thing is, they'd give it to someone else who didn't know that that's what they were doing. And then that person would publish it with their byline or whatever, like they made it up. It's like this removal from source. We see it. Those of us whose work it is, we see it. We see you doing that. And then they like get all like they're these messiah people or something, you know? Like Robert Edward Grant, I got a beef with his bullshit too, because he's presenting things to you as if this amazing discovery that he made, which he did not. And if you ever have taken an art class of any kind that was of any value, they're going to lay out to you the principles and elements of design. And they're going to tell you about the history of it and how it goes back to these philosophers. It goes back to these places in history. And then it's mimicked, and then it's reformed, and then it's examined again. And the Renaissance is the Renaissance of the classical era. And everything that they're learning and everything that they're showing you is directly rooted from the classical era. And they're not telling you that they made it up. They're telling you that they found it here. So when you see Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, there's a reason he's not called Da Vinci's Man. He's called Vitruvian Man because he's from Vitruvius, right? The Grecian architect, he was actually like a war designer, and he designed weaponry, right? And they knew these things, and they incorporated into their work, and it is there. It is not some mysterious revelation that this guy is actually found. This is the application of knowledge of the elements and principles of design that have been carried throughout history, until you get to this point, and then suddenly some a-hole is like, I made that up, and they steal it and they take it away, and then everybody's like, oh, shock and awe, this guy did this. And I don't mean to like single him out, but he pisses me off, and I've seen him steal other people's work, like straight rip it off their pages, and I'm like, wow, that looks like so-and-so's work, and he's like, yeah, I really respect this. And then this other person is like, wow, look what they did, we're so in sync. Like, are you that blind to not realize that this is what's happening? And then when I called it out, other people were also calling shit out, and other people are also sick of it. Other people are also noticing it. People who bothered to spend the time reading books. People who bothered to spend the time learning about things. I bother to spend the time learning about things. I bother to educate myself. I give myself the time to think about it, and then I process it, and then I create something, and then I show it to you, because that's what an artist does. And I spent a very, very, very long time at a very, very, very bougie private art college to be able to understand things at this level and utilize the elements and principles of design in the way that I do. I am qualified. I am the one who should be saying this and confronting this type of thing. That's my shit. We should be saying something. If you know, say something. If you see it, say something. Or else it goes on and on and on and on for years, and you wind up in a deep, dark hole, buried underneath other people's bullshit, saying that you didn't understand this, and stealing all your stuff. We're super, 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 super sick of it. Now, whether you believe that this is the astrology, whether you believe that this is the astronomy, whether you want to tell me that a radian doesn't work because it is sitting on a sphere, whatever you want to show me, come at me and I'll show you the pictures of it. I'll show you where I've already previously described it to you. I'll show you the physics, the electrophysics of it. I'll show you the plasma principles of it, down to the Debye layers of screening, electron shells, because I bothered to educate myself. Reading textbooks, spending time, making notes, making diagrams, making drawings, and thinking that I needed to do this to share it with the world. And all it's done is gotten me sunk deeper and deeper and deeper underneath other people's bullshit. So if you're wondering why I've been such a bitch Or if you're wondering why I haven't been putting out things, or why I'm making this shift in this direction, or even what I have in store next and why I'm not showing you, this is why. So thank you for listening to me today. Thank you for being here and supporting me. And if you've gotten this far, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you. Do some investigative reporting for yourself. Somebody presents something to you that looks familiar. God, that looks familiar. Yeah, that guy said that to me. Just like I've said it to other people before, except he said it to the person who actually designed that shit. Whose discovery it actually was. Who's the person who actually put it all together and made the puzzle look like something, and then it got stolen once again from the same group of assholes who've been doing it the whole time. Check out their work. And then figure out where they got it from. And check the dates, because it's always there. I promise. I promise. And if you wonder, you want to hear any of it, listen to The Electric View from the very beginning, back with Buddy James, Dave Johnson, and Neil Thompson. Go ahead, listen to those. And you're going to hear me and Neil saying a bunch of stuff, and then later on, years down the road, you're going to hear a whole bunch of other people saying that stuff and putting Neil down and putting me down and hiding behind things. And the fucked up thing is, each of those people is highly intelligent and has valid work of their own. They're just insecure assholes about stuff, I guess. Because why would you do that to somebody? I'm not going to get into their own personality traits. That's personal. That's between me and them and how I'm feeling. The rest of this is objective. These things really happened. They really did, you know? And amongst all of that, during that whole time, you know, we all have stuff going on in our personal lives. I have an ex-husband who keeps stealing my children. But things got reconciled. Things are getting rectified. And I'm hoping that through actions like this, and anybody who's listening to this right now, that some of this is rectified as well, because I would like to continue my work. And I would really, really, really like to show you what else I got going on. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.